I tell you, we are being snowed. Some of the arguments we're getting for cancelling the stage 3 tax cuts, they're just bizarre. I mean, these are tax cuts that were passed into law 4 years ago and still won't be delivered for another 2 years. But the taxpayer-funded ABC is manic in opposing them, and Labor and its mates, they're softening us up to have them taken away. The Treasurer again today, crying poor.
First of all, when it comes to the stage 3 tax cuts, our position hasn't changed. Secondly, the point that I've made, including this week, is that I think the global conditions have deteriorated sharply in the course of the last few weeks.
Now, before I get to the appalling arguments for robbing us of these tax cuts in next month's budget, let me deal with the myth that this cut is just for the rich. In fact, poor Australians have already had their share of the cuts, the first 2 stages. With the people who pay the vast majority of tax, well, they've had to wait for this last stage, years, and many of them are not rich. We're talking about people earning over $120,000, which is not bad, but it's also not champagne and caviar either. Now, these tax changes we're talking about actually remove the second highest tax rate, the 37 cents in the dollar, to give people more incentive to work harder and to grow the economy so that we all benefit. But let's go to the arguments that we've got to now scrap these cuts, starting with the crusading ABC, political editor Laura Tingle.
With the budget forecast to remain in deficit for the next 4 years, those tax cuts are effectively unfunded.
Now, hold on there. Every bit of spending in the budget is effectively unfunded too, when the budget is more than $30 billion in the red and when the government has a gross debt of nearly $1 trillion. In fact, the $1 billion a year we give to Laura Tingle's ABC, that's effectively unfunded too. How about we scrap that first, Laura? And here's another dumb argument from Rod Sims today, former head of the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, former advisor to a Labor Prime Minister.
You can't have these services at particular levels that we currently hear the community calling for without high taxation. The country needs to make a choice and be less knee-jerk in its reaction when anybody mentions an increase in taxes.
Well, actually, Rod, the problem we have hasn't been knee-jerk reactions to increasing taxes. It's been knee-jerk reactions to saying yes to government handouts, yes, yes, and to government U-Butte schemes, yes, yes, without thinking, wait a minute, who is paying for all this? Me? Now, knee-jerk yeses to handouts, that is the real problem, when we should be actually thinking if all these government schemes are actually worth the cost. Now, next up, Bernie Fraser, a former Reserve Bank governor, and again, close to Labor.
Labor should be seeking to capture that revenue to help fund these commendable but rather expensive programs that it's got in mind.
Well, here again, oh, commendable problems, but expensive. Well, that's why we need more taxes, is it? But seriously, anyone my age, or nearly my age, will know and will have seen with their own eyes how many more government schemes there are today to keep us comfortable than there were 20, 30, 40 years ago. How many more do we need? And I wouldn't say that these expensive programs of the Albanese government that needs all this extra money for are indeed all commendable at all. What would Bernie Fraser be thinking of? Would he be thinking of the tens and tens of billions of dollars this government's going to spend on green energy schemes that will simply ramp up power prices without making any difference to the world's climate? Is he thinking perhaps of Labor's promise to spend more than $100 million a year so nurses in nursing homes stay on after midnight, in most cases just sitting around while everyone else sleeps? Or does he think of the more than $5 billion a year the government wants to spend on childcare? Extra childcare for two-income middle-class families, that one-income families where mum chooses to stay at home, thinks it's better for the children, they have to help pay for. I mean, it's incredible. That doesn't seem fair, does it? In fact, Labor has promised to spend $8.5 billion more than the Liberals promised. Is all that extra spending truly necessary? And then there's this from Liberal MP Bridget Archer, who really, Bridget, give us a break, quit pretending, just join the Teal Independents or Labor now. She's telling the left-wing Guardian, well, things have changed since the tax cuts were passed. We've had a global pandemic, things have changed, policymakers should be making policy with an eye on the circumstances of the time. So she's for the Labor plan, well, of course she is. And you hear this argument a lot. In fact, I just showed you the Treasury using it too. Things have changed. But these tax cuts, they're not due today, they're due in 2 years. So how can we know today the circumstances in 2 years' time? So why don't we just wait and see? And I've got to ask, how much have circumstances changed in just the 4.5 months since the government got elected? I think we're being sold a little pup here. Sounds to me, oink, 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 that greedy politicians can't wait to steal your tax cuts to spend now. Because of course, when it comes to your money, who knows best how to spend it? It's the government, right? Or is it you?